Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Nutrition Bites. I'm your host and Vitacost Registered Dietitian, Sam Kramer. Today we're going to be talking about how to read a facts label. With the holidays just passing us, and most of you, like myself, have probably eaten more than you should, and maybe some things that you don't normally eat, it's important to understand what you're putting into your body and how these nutrients are calculated. So, we're going to talk today about both the nutrition facts label and the supplement facts label, and they inherently present the same information, just a little bit differently on how they're regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. So, without further ado, let's dive right into the nutrition facts label. So, on the top of the nutrition facts label, you'll see the serving size. And typical serving size is going to be the number of, let's say, chips. It might be 14 chips. It might be one cookie. It might be the whole thing if it's a piece of fruit. And it just depends on the actual food ingredient. But this dictates how much of the particular food that you're eating in one serving, and also determines the amount of calories and the macronutrients and the micronutrients below the line that we'll also get into. Below the servings is a servings per container. And this is the thing that you kind of have to watch out for, because if it's one serving, then that's fine. You can utilize the numbers for the calories and the macronutrients, etc., below the line. But if it's more than one serving, let's say 2, for example, you have to actually double the numbers that are below this line in order to determine how much you're getting for the entire package. So the servings per container dictates how many servings are in the entire unit that's sold. So this is definitely something to watch out for. So if you're eating potato chips out of the bag, you might want to put them on a plate, because you might not have mindless eating and you might have a little more portion control than just putting handfuls in the bag, which I'm definitely guilty of. But neither here nor there. Let's keep going on into the macronutrients. So below the servings per container, we have the amount of calories. And this is the amount of energy that's in each serving. And calories are based off of everyone's individual needs, but it's important to understand whether the food that you're eating might be energy dense, so very high calorie, and low in nutrients. So this is the junk food, such as chips and cakes and cookies, all the good stuff. Or if you're having a nutrient dense food that may or may not be high in calories. So it's important to understand what you're putting into your body. Below the calories, we have the macronutrients. This is carbohydrates, fats, and protein. And these are our 3 main macronutrients where energy is derived to give the amount of calories in a serving. So you can actually formally calculate the amount of calories, even though it's given. You can kind of double check by multiplying the amount of grams in each macronutrient by their respective energy. So to do that, to have carbohydrates and protein, it's 4 calories per gram. So you just take the amount of grams in each serving and multiply by 4. And then for fat, it's 9. So you just multiply the amount of grams by 9. And you can add these 3 up, and you'll roughly get the amount of calories per serving. And it might be rounded, a couple points here and there. Now, you may also notice that the carbohydrates and the fat might be further broken down into fiber for the carbohydrates, insoluble versus soluble, and these are 2 different types of fiber that have different functions in the body. Or for fat, it might be broken down into monounsaturated or polyunsaturated fat, and these are somewhat optional. There are some mandatory labelings with the macronutrients, such as saturated fat and dietary fiber for the carbohydrates. So that's something to keep in mind as well. To the right side of the label, you'll see percentage values, and you'll see above that, you'll see percent DV. And this stands for percent daily value. What this means, it's the percentage of the macronutrients that you need, or the micronutrients, which we'll see a little bit on, and this is based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So again, all needs are individualized depending on the amount of calories that you need, or maybe your macronutrient distribution is different. So you kind of have to take those percentages with a grain of salt, but gives you a good ballpark estimate of your daily needs and what that food is providing of those daily needs. So now that we've moved on, we've gotten through all the macronutrients, let's dive right into the micronutrients. So there are 4 micronutrients that the Food and Drug Administration list as of concern, where if people don't consume enough of these nutrients, they may be at risk for chronic disease. And they list 4 of them. There's vitamin A, vitamin C, iron, and calcium. So the percent DV for these are also based on a 2,000 calorie diet, and there are recommendations of each micronutrient of how much somebody should consume per day, and that's what these percentages are based off of. So now that we've taken a look at the old facts label, they're actually transitioning the old facts label into a new facts label in a couple of years. You may have seen this on a couple of products already. It's slowly transforming, but it'll be mandatory in a couple of years. And the new layout is on here, so you can note a couple of apparent differences, such as increasing the size and the font of the calories as well as the servings. They really want you to know how much you're consuming and not just glaze through. You may also see that carbohydrates have changed to total sugars, and then have also added sugars, which are non-naturally occurring sugars, so you can differentiate between what's naturally occurring in the food versus what's added by manufacturing for some purpose. Some other differences you may have noticed is that vitamin A and vitamin C in the micronutrient panel are replaced by potassium and vitamin D. And the reason for this is that a bunch of experts in the field came together and said, okay, people are probably getting enough vitamin A and vitamin C in our current diet, but what nutrients are really lacking? So they kept the other two, but they replaced vitamin A and vitamin C with vitamin D and potassium. So some not so apparent changes to the label that you might not know is that they've changed the percent daily values for different nutrients. They've also changed the threshold of certain micronutrients that might not be listed, and they've also changed the serving size of particular foods. So for example, ice cream used to be a half a cup per serving, but now they're changing it to 2/3 of a cup in order to accurately show what people are really consuming and dictate those macro and micronutrients based on that food. Okay, so now we've talked about the old and the new nutrition facts label. Let's dive into the supplement facts label. And essentially, again, these two facts labels are purporting the same information, but food is regulated a little differently than supplements. So supplements do have facts labels, but some key differences is that if it's a plant source, the label has to list which part of the plant that they're using, and also the source of the plant and where the plant is actually coming from. Some other differences is that you can't list 0 values for the components that are on the label for supplement facts, so they have to put an asterisk. And then also the supplement facts label has to list foods that don't have recommended dietary intakes or adequate intakes, which are the levels of nutrients that should be taken to allow 97% of a population to be healthy for that particular nutrient. So the supplement facts label still lists those that don't have those set values. So that's really the only two differences between these two labels, and also that they're listing different products. One is for food and one is for supplements. So I hope you learned a thing or two about how to read a facts label, and I hope you take this information and apply it to the next time that you're shopping at the grocery store or on Vitacost.com. I'm your host and Vitacost Registered Dietitian, Sam Kramer, signing off until next time.